All right, guys, so today we are going to be building a DIY portable power station for camping, overlanding. A couple of things that this is going to accomplish. It's going to be able to run a diesel heater. Powering a diesel heater is a must. Being able to do things like recharge our phones, our drone batteries, run some lighting at night around camp. This will be portable. We'll take it in a Jeep. Everything will be self-contained in this case. We will recharge it via solar power. You could also recharge it during the day when in the Jeep if you're out wheeling. You could do that. Do plan on charging this with solar. That's kind of the overall goal. Eventually, when we move to a overlanding trailer setup, I'd like to be able to have this to move from the trailer to the Jeep and back and forth that way. Be able to power some things on the trailer as well. So what we're going to be using is an Apache 2800 Pelican knockoff case from Harbor Freight. These are great. This is actually the one that I store my drone in. I'm going to move the drone out of this case into a larger one and use this case for this project. I have a 50 amp hour battery that we ordered from Amazon. It's a lithium iron phosphate battery. Lithium iron phosphate is all the rage right now. They're super lightweight. This battery weighs 10 pounds. It's got 50 amp hours, 640 watt hours. This will be a little bit bigger than a Jackery 500, and it's going to be quite a bit cheaper. The benefit of going this route is you can completely customize it, not only have on it what you need on it, and also when the battery does go out in this, I can simply swap out the battery, order a new battery, and I'm good to go, as opposed to a prefab or a retail ready power station like a Jackery or a Bluetti. Any of those, which are great, when the battery's done, it's done. It's a sealed unit. You can't really go in there and swap the batteries out. It just doesn't work that way. And I like a good DIY project, so that's why we're going to go the route we're going to go with it. Take you guys along. We're going to put this thing together and figure it out as we go. So thanks for watching. Another thing, guys, if you don't mind, if you're not subscribed already, you find value in this content, please do me a favor, like the video, go ahead and subscribe, hit that bell notification for me. I do want to move into doing a lot more of these DIY projects. I do them all the time. I'm impatient, and so I usually just get out here and get them done and don't take the time to film them, but I am going to be better about that this year and make sure that I do record a lot of these projects that I do on a pretty frequent basis. All right, so the first thing we need to do is get this Apache case emptied out. Currently, this is how I have it set up. It holds my drone as the DJI Mini 3 Pro, and it's working great for this. I've just started to carry a few more things with the drone, and I can't fit it all. I'd like to be able to fit my battery charger and spare batteries in this box, which I cannot. I have to store them in a different box. So I'm going to move all this stuff to a larger case, and we'll be able to reuse this foam in here, kind of wedge some components in. I'm going to get all this taken out. You have to carry some spare props, screwdriver for changing props, and all that in here. But for right now, I'm going to get all this out of here. We can start with a clean slate. I'll just set all this foam to the side, move my drone stuff out of the way so it doesn't get damaged. Hey, that's the box. And here's what I'm thinking. I already wired up this plug onto the battery for the solar charge controller that I have. This is what I'm thinking. Battery in there. This closes just fine on that, because it doesn't quite fit this way, right? So I think laying it on its side, just like this, there's plenty of room. Close the case, have the battery self-contained on one side, and then on the other side, I have a fuse block that I do plan on using. We put the fuse block there. I do have this screen, which I do plan on mounting on the front, just right there. I want to cut that out and mount it in there, and we'll run some silicone around to kind of seal that up. But that's my idea there. So that'll be somewhere in the middle here. This is the Batteria Power solar charge controller. It's a 10 amp solar charge controller. I'm running I have a 100 watt portable briefcase style solar panel. This 10 amp controller is plenty for that. I understand it's not going to charge it quick, but it's just plenty enough for a 100 watt solar panel. This here will probably mount somewhere in the lid, under side of the lid. We have a SAE connector that is fused that will wire directly to the solar charge controller, which to then go to the battery. I have a cigarette lighter plug. This will be for the diesel heater specifically. That will go there on the side, and then we have 2 of these. And then it has 2 quick charge USB-C, and each of these has its own on and off switch, which is super nice. And I'm thinking all these plugs to go along this side, all 4 of these. So two of these USB plugs, the SAE connector, and the cigarette lighter will all go along the side here. What I have to figure out is if I am going to add any of these switches. I bought some of these switches just in case. Everything more or less is already switched, with the exception of the 12-volt cigarette lighter plug. That is not on a switch, and I think that I would like it to be on a switch just in case. I don't want to have anything pulling power off of this battery unless I'm intending to help maintain its charge for as long as possible. So anything that's not switched, I want to have on a switch. So I think that's what we'll do, is just kind of line up all these plugs along there, you know, like that and that. So we'll have all 4 of these on one side, plenty of room for all the cabling over here. The fuse block can go in there, and yeah, that should work. All right, there's that. Now we just have to clean up these edges, and then we'll test fit the screen, make sure it fits. Take some sandpaper and just kind of clean up all these rough edges. Our screen, and it's popped right in. It's a little loose. I'll go ahead and run some silicone around the backside just to help hold it in place. But that is how that will look. All right, so I have taken a little break to give time for the silicone around the battery meter on the front to set up a little bit. It will take a full 24 hours to cure all the way. I wanted to give it time to dry enough where it'll hold itself in there, because I need to lift this lid up to work on the rest. What I've got done inside so far is most of the wiring in here is done. So I've got the wiring for both of the USB chargers done, with clips put on, shrink wrapped. Same for the cigarette socket. They all were fused. I cut the fuses off because I'm gonna run them all into a fuse block. This is the wiring for the solar charger. So the solar panel will plug in here, go in through here to the solar charge controller. Here is the fuse block. I went ahead and put some leads on here to tie directly to the battery. So we're getting close, guys. Just got a little bit more work to do. Tidy this up, and we'll get it done. So can't wait to see the finished product, but I will say it does look pretty sharp. All right, guys, what I'm thinking here is fuse block kind of live right here underneath everything else. Still have access to it by moving cables out of the way. It'll have a cover on it. The battery itself is going to set in here like this. That fuse block can sit in there just like that. You've got your 2 battery leads. Everything else will go to that. You do have to tie this in to the battery for the, this has a temperature probe here, and then a positive and a negative lead. I'm gonna take the positive directly to the battery. The negative I will take to the negative bus on the fuse panel. I am just gonna use some 3M PE foam tape to secure this to the bottom of the case. I don't want to screw this in, have screws poking through the bottom of the box like that. This tape should hold it more than secure enough to accomplish what we need it to. I think just 2 strips of this on the back of the fuse block will be sufficient. Do 1 there. And this stuff works extremely well, guys. I use this around the house for all kinds of stuff, but I'm really, really impressed with this 3M PE foam. I also have this Gorilla Tape. This stuff is garbage, complete garbage. It doesn't hold anything in comparison to the 3M foam tape. So get that on there. Much exactly like this right here. Press it down, apply some even pressure around here. Get that to stick, and just like that, that sucker's in there. The switches, I got 2 switches here, put 1 switch here, 1 switch underneath it. The top switch, I think I will use for the solar charge controller, bottom switch I'm gonna use to control the cigarette lighter plug. The two USB plugs, each of them have their own switch built into them. So I'm gonna leave them as they are, but I do want anything that's not switched to be switched from the outside of the case, just for ease of use, really. So that'll be that. All right, guys, I've got everything wired up. I just plugged the battery in. So I've got a negative cable from the battery to the fuse block down here. See it right here. And then on the positive side, I've got 3 wires. I've got 1 lead coming from the battery gauge right here on the front panel. I've got 1 lead going right here to this top switch, which goes to the solar charge controller, as you see here. And then I've got 1 lead going to the positive side of the fuse block. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna put some fuses in the fuse block. Space is a little bit tight, but I wanted everything to fit in securely. I want to have a lot of loose space in here. So one of the drawbacks of that is you don't have a lot of space to work, and that's okay. I'm putting a 20 amp fuse on my cigarette lighter. I'm doing 15 amp fuses on my USB ports, and that should cover it. I'm gonna tuck this battery down in here the way I intended it to go. Let me get those cables out of the way. Once I get everything in here nice and tight, everything will kind of wedge itself in. At least that's my thought. This battery probe for the gauge on the front, I'm just gonna stick down here next to the battery. Just always kind of give me a good read on that. Make sure it's not getting too hot in here. The solar charge controller, so I turn that switch on, you can see that it's reading the battery here. This is a Bluetooth capable solar charge controller, which is super cool. I'll show you guys the app on that. It is pretty beneficial to have a Bluetooth. You can easily see how much battery you've got. It's also cool because you can see like what kind of charges you're getting in, all that kind of stuff. And for right now, I'm just wedging that in there. I'm not sure how that's going to permanently live in here. This has a 20 amp fuse already in it. Put that back on there. Cool deal. I'm just going to tuck this in. We've got these cables. So essentially, this is what we've got. All right. That popped out. May have miscalculated our clearances on the gauge here. Not good. Yep, I did. Miscalculated that by a lot. That's unfortunate. Once I close that all the way, that is what's happening. Definitely miscalculated that. But I can kind of give you a rundown of the screen. We'll figure out a solution for this at a later date. But right now, 48 degrees is what that probe is reading. Battery's at 97%, 13.1 volts. I can easily turn that off, right? Or back on. When I have it off, it shouldn't be drawing any power of any kind. All right, guys, here's what I ended up with. I had the issue where I had it all completed, it had the screen in, and then when I went to close the box, I didn't account for the space between the battery and the back of the screen. The back of the screen is about 1/4 of an inch thick, maybe. I had it recessed all the way. When I closed it, the back of the screen hit the battery and it pushed it out and broke the seal. I had it all siliconed in there. So what I did was I just fused a piece of plastic across the back on the inside with some hot glued the screen down to that, and then put a bead of hot glue around the outside to seal it. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, but it is functional. It will hold the seal. The screen's in there, nice and neat. Turn it off and on. The camera can't pick it up great, but it does give you a readout. The battery percentage, the voltage that's currently on the battery. On this side is where we have all of the plugs and switches. Is the SAE connector for the solar. Feeds into a solar charge controller, then into the battery. It's switched on by this switch here. This switch controls the cigarette lighter plug right there. And then both of these USB plugs are individually switched. You can turn those on and off right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this outside, get it set up on the solar panel, and we'll see what we've got going on. All right, so here is the final product, what we put together with the DIY power station, DIY portable battery, whatever you want to call it, strictly for our purpose with camping. And so this is the power station that we built. This is a solar panel that we're using to keep it charged while we're out off grid for a couple of days. This is a 100-watt set power solar panel from Amazon. It's like $100, briefcase style solar panel. It's got the legs, built in to prop it up. And then in here, I'm storing all the cables to connect it to the DIY power station. Basically, what I've got is a 10-foot SA to solar cable, also from Amazon. Cable is probably like $12, but it's 10 foot long. It's 14 gauge, plenty enough for 100-watt power, 10 amps, going directly into the SA connector on the power station, feeding the solar charge controller inside of the case. Solar charge controller is from Battery Power, also purchased on Amazon, right around $40-50, depending on if it is on sale or not at the time. But it's a 10 amp solar charge controller, and it is Bluetooth capable, so you can monitor your input and battery status on an app. And so if your battery is not Bluetooth capable, adding the Battery Power solar charge controller can give you those capabilities to monitor the status of your battery on your phone. But we also have the battery meter right here on the face of the box. Now, if you remember earlier in the video, I had that all flush mounted, and then upon closing the case, I miscalculated the clearances inside of the box for the battery in the back of the battery meter here. Closing the lid, it pushed it through, broke the silicone seal, and I knew that wasn't going to work. So what I ended up doing, fusing a piece of plastic across the back on the underside of the lid, setting the battery meter on top of that, and then laying a bead of hot glue all around it. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, but again, we're really going for function over form with a project like this. I just need this to function and serve my purpose, not necessarily to look like something that I bought from the store that is all professionally done. Again, it's a DIY project. That's kind of the nature of the beast. So hot glued around there. It's super solid in there. It's not going anywhere. It'll also help to weatherproof the box. The meter itself is weather resistant. So we'll have all the power that we need for our multi-day trips off grid. We'll be able to do things like charge our phones. We have some USB powered camp lights, string lights that we hang up around camp. Those can power off of here. Charge things like drone batteries. The biggest thing, I mean, all those things are important, but the biggest thing, we really enjoy camping in all months except for summer. During the summer, it's too hot. It's not comfortable. I don't enjoy it. Fall, winter, and spring, we love to camp. In the winter, where we like to go camping in the Washita Mountains, hopefully we'll get to the Ozarks soon. It can get pretty cold. We've camped in temperatures in the low 20s without having a diesel heater. And while it can be done, it's going to be much more comfortable using a diesel heater. So we're going to be making a video about the new diesel heater that we purchased. If you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe so you get the notification when that content comes out. But that's the biggest thing with this one is it's going to be able to power our diesel heater for when we go camping on those super cold nights and be able to keep us warm throughout the night. So that's kind of where we're at, but really fun project, guys. If you are looking for a solution, you don't want to pay the big money for the pre-built power stations, things like Jackery and Bluetti and things like that. If you've got a little bit of technical knowledge, but even if you don't, there's plenty of resources on YouTube to take a look at this stuff and figure out a game plan to do it yourself. And you can save a little bit of money. You have more control, more flexibility over what actually goes into it. That way you're not paying for stuff that you're never going to use. You only put the stuff in here that you need, only the stuff that you want. Save the money that way, and the satisfaction of knowing that you've done it yourself. For me, that's always the biggest thing. I really enjoy this project. I'm excited to have this. I think we're going to have a lot of fun. This is going to really enhance our overlanding experience. when we make camp. So that's it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.